Money in the United States is regulated by the Federal Reserve Board. The Federal Reserve Board is the central bank of the United States. It is the bank's bank. It regulates the banks and it controls the money supply. It is also the lender of last resort. So when a bank gets in trouble and needs to borrow money itself, the lender of last resort is the Federal Reserve. Banks and money supply are obviously related, since a lot of the money supply is actually deposits that are in banks. One of the things about our banking system is, because of our banking system, you yourself would be able to help influence the money supply of the United States. And now I'm going to explain that to you right now. Maybe I'll try the blue. I don't know. Maybe the black wasn't showing up that well. So let's say you had $100 currency, and it was in your pillow or sitting around your house or whatever reason, and you decided you wanted to deposit it in the bank. And let's say you were the first customer this bank ever had. So I'm going to set up what we call a T account, or a balance sheet for the bank. I sure hope this is showing up. At any rate, so a balance sheet has two sides to it. It has assets and it has liabilities. And if you've ever taken any accounting, you know that assets must equal liabilities. And if you haven't taken any accounting, just know that assets are going to equal liabilities in total at the bottom. So, so this is the bank. And so you've come in and you've put your $100 into the bank. And so that shows up on the liability side of the bank's balance sheet, the deposits, because there's a deposit with your name on it for $100. So they owe you $100. And then they're going to take your currency, they're going to put it in their vault, and they're going to hold it on reserve. So if you ever need to come back and get it, you can have it. And so the very beginning, the bank's balance sheet looks like this. Assets, the money in reserve, $100. The deposit, the money they owe you, $100. Assets equal liabilities, and we're done. Well, this is kind of a boring bank. And I'm not sure how this bank is going to stay in business, because they're not, earning any money. They're just sort of holding it safely for you. But let's say we have the situation where, no, the bank has this great idea that, you know what, we're going to hold back some of the money that's on deposit, just because, we want to make sure we have something in case somebody needs to withdraw something, but we're going to loan out the rest. So let's say they decide to loan out $90. And so we still now have assets equal liabilities. The bank has $90 in loans, so this is money that people owe them, so it's an asset to the bank. And $10 still in reserve, balancing out the $100 in deposits. So this is, we have what we call a fractional reserve banking system in the United States. So it's exactly how it works. When you deposit money in the bank has a requirement to hold in reserve a certain percentage of that deposit, but then they're able to use the rest to either make loans or make some other kind of investments that we'll be actually discussing later on in this lecture. So now, well, let's go back to this situation here. So this is the bank. We'll just call this Bank 1. The first bank that you've deposited your money in is now in this situation where the deposits and the asset side balance. But this $90 has been loaned out to somebody. Now maybe that person is starting a new business and they've invested in some equipment, or maybe they've just gone out to buy something. But whoever they have spent that money, given that money to, let's say they bought something, let's say they went to Walmart and bought something. Walmart's taking that $90 and they're going to deposit it in their bank. So we can think of Bank 2 getting this $90 deposit, And bank 2 is going to be in the same kind of situation, where they're going to want to hold 10% in reserve, but then they're going to want to loan out the rest. So they're going to want to loan $81 out because they want to earn interest on that. So that becomes a loan to them, an asset to them. So now this bank is now also in balance, right? $90, $90. But notice this $81 has now been loaned out. So someone's going to take that $81 and again use it for something else, and whatever they buy or whatever investment they make, the person that gets that $81 or the company that gets the $81 is probably going to deposit it in their bank. So bank 3 is going to get an $81 deposit, and they're going to decide to hold, so this is the deposits over here. All right, this is the liability side of the bank balance sheet. This is the liability side. This is the asset side. So bank 3 is going to take the $81 deposit. They're going to hold $8.10 in reserves, and then they're going to loan out the $71.90. Check the notes out here. This right there. The $71.90. And you can imagine the $71.90 is going to get deposited, and 10% of that's going to be held back, and the other 90% loaned out. On and on and on and on and on. It actually becomes an infinite series, but it doesn't mean that we're going to create an infinite amount of money. There actually is a formula for an infinite series that someday you can take a math class and learn about how to solve an infinite series. For this one, I will tell you the answer. I'm not looking at the answer. I know the answer to that question. I'm just looking at notes for something else. But an infinite series, we're going to end up with the amount of increase in the money supply is equal to 1 over R, where R is the reserve requirement. So if the bank is required to hold back 10% of the deposits in reserve and can loan out the rest, 1 over 10%, which is 1 over 0.1, equals 10. And so the money supply is actually going to increase by 10 times the amount of this particular deposit. So a $100 deposit into the bank, you just take the currency off your shelf or out of your pillow, put it into the bank, it's going to lead to a $1,000 increase in the money supply because of the fact that we have a fractional banking reserve system. The bank is going to loan out 10% of the money that you deposited. The person who gets that is most likely going to deposit that money in some bank. That bank is then going to loan out 90% of the money that's deposited to it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The mathematical solution to the infinite series is this 1 over R, and so it will be a tenfold increase in the money supply. If the reserve requirement were 5%, then it would be 20 times. So a $100 deposit would lead to $2,000 increase in the money supply. A 20% reserve requirement would mean we would have a 5 times increase in the money supply. So a $100 deposit would lead to a $500 increase in the money supply. One of the tools that the Federal Reserve can use to control the supply of money is the reserve requirement. They actually don't change the reserve requirement very often because it actually has a huge effect on the overall money supply. Okay. So it's not something they want to do lightly. Now, this is a very simple balance sheet. Let's going to complicate it just slightly. Just slightly. And talk about a more realistic bank balance sheet. And we could think about a bank balance sheet having reserves, say 200, loans, 700, say securities, which could be stocks or bonds. We'll have a little bit more to say about that, not too long, let's say 100. So this is 1,000, pretty small bank still. And then let's say the deposits are $800. So this would be a 25% reserve requirement here. Maybe the bank has borrowed some money, so it has some debt of $150, and then what's ever left over is going to be capital. So this will be the bank's, the equity interest. The owners of the bank have $50 in capital, so this is going to add up to 1,000. Basically, you add up all of the assets, you add up all of the liabilities, and whatever the difference is, you stick in here in capital. And then this is going to lead us to the other magic L word, which is leverage. So on Monday, you'll definitely want to know the two L words, which are liquidity, which is the ease with which an asset. So the leverage in this case is 20. So the leverage ratio. The leverage ratio is 20.